Get ready for another insightful episode of the Finance in Society podcast. Our mission with this podcast is to tackle the pressing financial issues affecting our lives, both personally and as a society. You hear from a diverse range of experts, including prominent figures in financial services, key policymakers, experienced academics, and insightful researchers. Plus, we feature individuals whose personal journeys offer invaluable financial lessons. Join us as we shine a light on challenges and discover practical solutions that can genuinely enhance financial well-being for everyone. Fascinating title you have for your dissertation, as we call it. Bias by design, you had a question mark there, the hidden biases in financial advice fee models. Can you please unpack that for us? What are you talking about there?
When we have a look at some behavioural biases that come through, so the framing effect. So from a client's aspect, being presented and listening to somebody that may suggest that they will pay 1% of their assets, it kind of feels small compared to somebody that may be charging a fixed fee. We will charge you £3,000. That can often seem high, and clients will often choose something that feels less costly. It took me on a mini journey within the MBA on stuff that I've never done before.
Okay.
So when you have that collection of data, you want something meaningful from it, and you want to understand it in its best form. I used the mixed method approach, so I used a qualitative and a quantitative. So the quantitative was the data from consumers.
And that's a survey, is it?
A survey,
okay,
yeah.
Right.
So we had 12 questions that we went out and we asked consumers. And then the qualitative was a semi-structured interview with professionals in the advice arena.
Let's talk about the regulators and the professional bodies. I mean, why should this be relevant to them? Why should they be aware of the possibility of hidden biases, and what should they be doing about it?
I think they should absolutely be aware of potential hidden biases that are going to sit in the framework. Do I think that AI can enter the arena? It already has. Can it help? Absolutely. Can AI take away the human element? That's a very, very difficult question. And I think I would answer that in the completely non-academic way.
Okay. In a simple way, if you had to do this again, would you?
Okay. Absolutely.
All right. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, Charles.
Good to have you today.
Nice to be here.
Here at Park Campus of the University of Gloucestershire. So, viewers, I'm Charles Afriye. I'm the director of our Finance and Society Research Institute, a senior lecturer in accounting at UOG. And today, I'm very honored to have Paul.
Don't go too far.
Paul, how about you introducing yourself? Who are you, Paul? Tell us about yourself.
Good question. Good question. Paul Richardson. I'm Managing Director of Concept Financial Planning. I am a Chartered Financial Planner. I am also a Fellow of the FPFS.
Brilliant.
And I have just passed my MBA in Financial Planning.
Congratulations, Paul. As if I didn't know, right? Congratulations. I mean, that's no mean feat. So today, thank you for taking time out to talk to us about your research, your journey on the MBA. And this conversation will focus on the major project that you did in your MBA program. Fascinating title you have for your dissertation, as we call it. Bias by design, you had a question mark there, the hidden biases in financial advice fee models. Can you please unpack that for us? What are you talking about there?
It was there for a proactive question, and it sets to see whether or not there are any biases in the remuneration structures for financial advice, and if bias do exist, how, and what they are.
Okay, good. Anyway, thought-provoking question. So there must be some attractors to it? What drew you to that question, that problem? I mean, sometimes when people think about academic research, it might sound like pie in the air, theoretical, abstract. Are there any real life issues that drew you to that topic?
Yeah, I've been in financial advice for almost 2 decades now. And with running a practice, it was looking at transparency, ethos and clarity that all sit in the advice, and how much does it actually matter from a client's perspective, and what can they do? And I thought there is no better way than coming in and asking those questions, do the research, and see what we could uncover. See if there is anything in there that skews the advice that's given. If there are biases that sit out there that then impact the outcomes from advice. It's quite far-reaching, but really exciting.
Exciting question there. So you're touching on the possibility of bias. You're talking about the advice cycle, because you also touched on psychological and structural biases. So what is this idea of bias? I mean, just to simplify, what are we talking about there? I mean, can you tell us a bit more? Maybe if you give us an overview of the types of fees, with some examples, that we can begin to understand where the possibility of biases may exist.
Yeah. Okay, so we can narrow it down, if you like, to 3 types of fee models.
Okay.
So commission, that's largely gone since the RDR, but it is available on some products, like mortgages and protection. And then the 2 that follow that are assets under management and fixed fees or hourly rates.
Okay.
So in terms of assets under management and biases that may exist that sit in there, assets under management primarily look at the amount of assets that our clients have got, and the firm decide on how much they want to charge as a percentage of those assets. Where can biases sit in there? Does it lead into the advice? i.e. if you're remunerated for the amount of assets, are you going to tell a client to spend money, give money away, if it is
going to reduce the pot?
Yeah, and it's going to achieve some of their objectives. That's a question to be answered. If you've got a fixed fee model or an hourly rate, can biases creep in? So a firm might agree to do some work for a client, and they agree what that fee is up front. If they misjudge or they underestimate that fee, do they get near to the end and then just quickly get it done so the client doesn't get the outcome either? I'm not kind of saying that one is better than the other. It is very much about deep diving into the research and finding out exactly if they do exist.
Oh, okay. So I'm a bit intrigued about the hidden bit. Yeah. So are you saying that unknown? Are you saying that it's possible for the advisor not to be aware or conscious of this bias, or you're saying it is possible for the client not to perceive the existence? Is that why you have that hidden bit?
Absolutely, and I think it's both. Take both of those aspects.
Okay.
I'm not suggesting that advisors meaningful, but if an advisor is remunerated with assets under management, then their income may well be reduced by doing a certain course of action. Are clients educated? Do they have the understanding, and do they have the confidence maybe to ask those difficult questions about to an advisor? How are you remunerated? You could also flip it across to the other side again and say, but an advisor might say, that's the only method that we have to be able to charge you fees for the work. Therefore, you either accept it or you don't.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. I mean, I looked at your work a fair bit, and came across psychological drivers as well.
Yeah.
And I think you were touching on some of the cognitive biases that are possibly found to be kind of emerging or present in the advice process. So what are we talking about there? What are some of these psychological cognitive biases?
When we have a look at some behavioral biases that come through, so the framing effect. So from a client's aspect, being presented and listening to somebody that may suggest that they will pay 1% of their assets, it kind of feels small compared to somebody that may be charging a fixed fee. We will charge you £3,000. That can often seem high, and clients will often choose something that feels less costly.
Okay.
So there's that kind of framing effect that sits in there for clients. The status quo, a bias from a status quo, clients just tend to stick what models that they've always been presented with. And if the majority of the market are charging assets under management, then clients will probably just accept it anyway. And they probably won't ask the questions. And they do need to have a degree of confidence to ask those questions. You could also add in authority bias. If a client is coming to an advisor, fundamentally they're going to trust the advice that's given.
Okay.
And if they're only given one option, on that basis, they might turn around and go, well, if that's the option, they're dealing in my best interests, and therefore I'm happy to proceed on those bases. So there are quite a number of the biases that sit in there.
Behavioral bias. Okay. Right. Wow. Okay. So yeah, you've touched on a few things from the client's perspective, what the client could be inclined to do or not to do. You've touched on the advisor, but then you also, your dissertation also talks about the beyond the individual level. So you touch on structural. So what are some of these systemic or structural kind of gaps or spaces that could create these biases?
Yeah, it's when you look at the wider effect, it's not always about the client, it's not always about the advisor. The advisor can sit there, and it's not that that's a bad advisor, but they might not have the framework. And they might not have the guide to have a different behavior in terms of they have a choice. I think a great example of that are performance targets. If an advisor has a target to reach a certain assets under management, does that bring in a bias for the advice that they will deliver to the clients because they're focused on that assets under management?
Hitting that target.
Absolutely. If they're rewarded for the amount of assets that they have, again, is the perception that they're always looking at retained or increasing the amount of assets that they control. So even if an advisor is acting impartially, the structure of the firm might be the restricting to make some of those decisions to maximising the assets, etc. Pricing as well, the lack of transparency that sits in there. Can firms give choice? A lot of the time, people that are paying percentages don't understand what that is in real terms.
Percentage of what?
Absolutely.
Because I mean, if you agree beforehand a percentage, then what you're saying is, in the future, when it comes to the time of actually paying, it will be a percentage of something, and there is that uncertainty about what that thing will be. Right.
Absolutely, and I think you have to have a product to be able to earn. So if you're a percentage of an amount of assets, there has to be a product there for that to be able to pay. So there is an inherent bias that's sitting in there because it's not the advice that's delivering, it's the product.
Okay, so I mean, on the other side, as you said not long ago, on the other side, it is also probably fairer being fair to asset under management, isn't it probably also fairer that, we give you the best advice, we get this pie to be massive, and by getting a bigger pie, I'm working in your interest, and then I get a tiny percentage of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Additional growth. Okay. Right.
I think it's important that probably at this point to make clear that there is no panacea for there's no right and wrong answers that sit in here in terms of the way in which people charge. Is just about getting to, well, are there biases that sit in there?
Behind the thinking behind.
Yeah.
And the results and the outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's maybe the education for clients that need to be able to ask those kind of questions that sit in there. Is it in my interest? Does the advice look? It would be the advice that I would be given, but a lot of the time people don't know. And when you are working on large assets with small percentages.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, my next question was going to be, let me put it out there. Do you think there is a worst offender? So, in terms of, I know you've said there isn't a clear-cut answer, but if you had to, I'm not going to press, I'm not going to push, but if you had to, given the research that you did, given a nuanced answer in the context of all the considerations, is it more likely that maybe a particular fee structure is prone to more biases? Can you say that or not?
Yeah, I think you probably can, and I'll pick you up on one thing. You pressed me all the way through. You pressed me all the way through that MBA. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, I think when you kind of have a look at it, the assets under management give more red flags. There's more things that can sit in there. Are you getting true value of advice?
Okay.
There are less less moving parts to go wrong, and it was always perceived by clients through some of the questionnaires, and I might come to that later, but clients wanted the assets under management fee structure because they perceived it to be less, but they wanted the fixed fee because they perceived that the biases in there were less.
Oh, okay.
And it's trying to combine those two to bring them together. So
that's what, sorry, Paul, that's what you think, or that's what your data seem to have found. This is the client's perspective.
Yeah.
If you try to detach yourself from who you are, and if you don't think for your clients, if you sit in my chair now and you look at it, the client's perception may not be real.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what do you think is there? Which of these fees would be your worst culprit when it comes to the possibility of biases being hidden? Let's say the client might perceive this is fair, this is great, but there's a bias that's hidden in there. Which one?
If I'm pressed, assets under management.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry for pressing.
Again, absolutely. Assets under management, because the retention, the need to grow.
Okay.
You're still getting paid, or you can get paid bigger sums through the basis of not doing any additional work. The portfolio increases, you're getting paid for that success.
And you get a client not to draw down or withdraw.
Absolutely.
Maybe drawing down or withdrawing might have helped them achieve other objectives.
Could possibly do that.
Okay.
It's very much trying to find the balance that sits in there.
Okay. They say you wrote the methodology chapter and the methods and all those big words. I think this is the crunch of the research. What did you actually do? What data did you collect? Did you do some experiments? Did you run the marathon? What did you do?
Yeah, I ran a marathon because the MBA wasn't hard enough. So I thought, well, I might as well train for a marathon at the same time. I used the mixed method approach. So I used a qualitative and a quantitative. So the quantitative was the data from consumers.
That's a survey.
A survey.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So we had 12 questions that we went out and we asked consumers. And then the qualitative was semi-structured interview with professionals in the advice arena. So
Wow.
a number of advisors that have different charging structures, whether that be assets under management or fixed fees, and compliance consultants. And when I say semi-structured, it was just asking the open questions.
It's like we're doing now, right?
And seeing where it leads.
Okay, so no, just a bit of facts there. So the question is, I mean, how many responses did you get? 5, 10, 50?
501.
501 responses. That is colossal.
Yeah.
That's massive. That probably represents a fair section of the client population.
Yeah, and I wanted to do that because I had a good mentor that turned around to me and said, you need that to make it meaningful.
Yeah.
And it's right that if we're going to undertake this degree of research, you want it to be meaningful, to collate that amount of data, to bring it back. So,
and what did you do with them? I mean, did you count them? Did you read them? Did you follow a structured way of what did you do? How did you analyze them?
Yeah, that is the time that I went, I need to put my hand up and ask yourselves, the university, I need help here. So I worked on something called structural equation models.
Structural equations. Equations. Okay. Fun stuff.
Yes. Some might say not.
Okay.
But I found it really exciting because it took me on a mini journey within the MBA on stuff that I've never done before.
Okay.
So when you have that collection of data, you want something meaningful from it and you want to understand it in its best form. And maybe having a very simplistic look, 20% of people agreed with this, 10% of people didn't agree with X. That doesn't bring meaning. So going on that journey was quite exciting, and the help that the university gave in terms of getting there was so far-reaching for me. Brilliant
stuff. So you've come up with things that emerge from the data that is not your voice. This is what the data reveals.
Yeah. So fundamentally, we're looking at constraints of trust, biasness, and transparency that all sit in what the data is telling us. We would never have got that just by looking at a simplistic way.
Okay. So remind me, you said bias, trust, and transparency.
That's it, yeah.
So these are the constructs or the ideas that kind of goes through the minds of clients and advisors when they are kind of going through the journey and thinking about fees.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And the trust became one of the top constructs that sit in there for clients' decisions on what they will deal with.
Okay. Anyway, let's move on a bit. So, did anything surprise you in terms of your findings? Was there anything that was counterintuitive, like something against your conventional kind of understanding of what would have been important?
Yeah, I think from looking at it from an advisor's point of view, I don't think advisors go out there looking to harm clients. It's just something that's in there. What surprised me is getting advisors thinking a different way. Okay. So when we were doing the questionnaire, it actually did make them think in a different way about the questions that we were asking. From a client's perspective, it comes back to the issue of, well, I would like this because I feel that that's cheaper, but I want this because I feel that doesn't have any bias in. And if you can mix the two together, that'd be brilliant because then I get the outcome that I want. It's kind of like, well, actually, that's not quite where
that's not what the system gives you.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think that there's a couple of blind spots that get us to think in the way in which we behave, and then potentially in the way in which clients behave, and maybe the way in which they should ask questions.
Oh, that brings me to the implications of your findings, quite rightly. So let's look at all of this from a client's perspective. So a prospective client is looking at an advisor. what should they understand about the fee structure of the advisor to give them the level of assurance or comfort that there aren't any hidden biases, or even if there are, they are being mitigated for?
Yeah, I think that education piece for clients and the confidence for them to be able to ask the questions that they should be asking. I'm not suggesting that working on assets under management is wrong, but what does a client get? What value does a client get from that? Having a client understand that a product needs to be sold for an advisor to make money, will that skew the advice for the advisor to say, this is the product that you need and I will get paid? Compared to somebody that's offering a fee, a fixed fee, okay, if I pay that fee, what do I get in return? How good is your advice? And the bundling, a lot of the time we see advice and, if you like, implementation, i.e. the putting the product in place, you see that bundled.
Okay. So that's a kind of a vertical integration.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And
by the vendor. Okay.
And you're saying, okay, well, how does a client value that? How much of
a benefit?
Yeah. If I'm paying 1%, for example, how much of that is about the advice and how much of that is for the implementation?
Okay.
And then I think clients will be able to make decisions.
A bit of an informed decision.
And I think that's important. If we look at other professions, solicitors, accountants, they get their fees. Builders, you're never going to ask a builder to build you a wall without knowing the price to start with. So, or at least having an idea that's in there and what your outcome would be.
The outcome. Yeah, you mentioned outcome a few times. Okay, let's look at it from the practitioner's point of view. Let's look at the financial advisor who may be listening into our conversation here. Regardless of their fee model, what you're saying is that there are possible biases either way or every way. But what do they do about it? How do they maintain consciousness of this bias in such a way that it would probably, that awareness might lead them to seeking better outcomes for their client, because we are all about better outcomes for all.
Consumer duty, which is really important. I think sometimes you can be quite restricted going back to firm choice and not being able to offer alternatives. Sometimes you are only offered one and the firm can only ever deliver that choice.
Then there is no choice, right?
You have no choice. Your choice is taken away from you, and then you have to decide whether or not you want to work with that firm. And should your decision just be based on the way in which they're remunerated? And that's a real tough one.
It is, isn't it?
Because you say, well, I place a lot of trust in this person, etc. So does it make a difference on how they're remunerated?
Right. Okay, let's move. We're going into a different space now. Then let's think about the structural issues that go beyond the individual client or the advisor and the firm. Let's talk about the regulators and the professional bodies. I mean, why should this be relevant to them? Why should they be aware of the possibility of hidden biases, and what should they be doing about it?
I think they should absolutely be aware of potential hidden biases that are going to sit in the framework. The issue is that our profession is very much built on assets under management. So the FCA will collect data on assets under management. Platforms collect data. Everywhere you look in our profession is all about assets under management. And we're not changing that narrative back to consumer outcomes. So if we're only talking about assets under management, it's inherent that we focus on assets under management rather than looking at the outcomes about a client. Did they get the right outcome? That's a really difficult one to measure, though.
Wow, interesting stuff. Okay, but let's just get a bit more topical now. Let's join the proverbial bandwagon there. People are talking about AI, data science, and technology. You've seen this problem, this possibility of biases being hidden. Could AI be a solution? Could data science be a solution? Or could it make the problem worse? We're just being futuristic here.
Yeah, I mean, I love a bit of technology. Technology is great, but it needs to be used in the right way. The issue that you could have, if your data is skewed and has bias in it, and you program your, let's say your AI, you're just going to scale a huge amount of bias that sits in there, and you've got a bigger problem than you had before. Do I think that AI can enter the arena? It already has. Can it help? Absolutely. Can AI take away the human element? That's a very, very difficult question. And I think I would answer that in the completely non-academic way of another question.
Okay.
Would a client trust AI to deliver advice?
That would be another dissertation project. But let's maybe muddy the waters a bit. Probably not so much of trusting the AI to give the advice. But if the client has the AI that could help them to analyze the fairness of the fees that the advisor charged, that could put power in their hands, isn't it? So if all the bits that the advisor did were costed, I mean, I'm just putting my old accountant hat on. So if we have cost centers for everything that you do is costed, and at the end of the year, the advisor charges X amount, and the client can say, "Oh, is this fair? Let's look at what you did. So you did that," and the AI runs an algorithm that says, "This is how much value Paul provided for you."
Yep.
Could that? So
in principle, yes.
In principle, okay.
That non-tangible things that we do as advisors, that's going to be a difficult one to measure. An advisor that may calm a client down or keep a client invested because of markets, etc., that can be a very difficult conversation.
And very difficult to value.
Absolutely. And then that's the issue, because you're always looking at hindsight. Always looking at, well, we did this, and we did this. But I definitely think there is an element that AI could step in and be able to assist advisors to make it easier. Interesting
stuff there. So, I mean, this whole conversation is kind of, I wouldn't say veering, of course, but it's coming back time and again to the value of what the advisor does. So it's kind of talking to the bigger conversation about the value of advice, isn't it? How do you value that? And is it all financial, or is it about well-being? Is there a different construct that we should use to assess outcomes?
Yeah, clients like trust, clients like a degree of certainty, some clients. And it is very difficult to be able to sit and say, oh, okay, that's what you do. If you make a widget, I've made a widget, there's your widget.
So it's a tangible product.
Absolutely. But how do you take a objective, a goal for a client that is many years in the future and make it tangible?
The jurist,
as you're going on that journey.
I like the journey analogy. So let's come to what this probably means to you and the academic community and the professional community. And I'm asking about, so what? If you had to do this again.
Okay, Charles, I don't know where you're going on this one.
I probably think you would not do the same thing again. Or maybe you would. I mean, is there an open question? Are there critical issues out there in this problem domain that you would want to look at again? If not yourself, you would recommend that other people look at?
Yeah, the journey that I've been on for this, I've loved. I can't tell you that, but I have loved it. And it really has opened my eyes in terms of research and go in a lot deeper than some of the professional examinations and more of the technical aspect of passing those, to really take in a subject and being able to make it your own and being able to go down the rabbit holes of where you go down and you're doing your research and you just go, oh, this is great. I'm getting all of this knowledge that's coming back, and takes you in different directions. I believe as professionals, we should be doing more of that. And maybe taking more subjects and analysing them, coming back, but then doing something with it.
Yeah,
taking those outcomes and using what academics do and bringing that into the professional world to be able to go, okay, we can collide them together and pick up different subjects and really understand the motivational factors that sit behind them.
Brilliant stuff. So maybe that's a PhD? Is that a PhD?
You keep mentioning these 3 letters. Can I ignore them for now?
For a fair bit. But okay, so I mean, in a simple way, if you had to do this again, would you?
Okay, absolutely.
All right.
I'm not just trying to see because you're sitting there. Would I do it again? Yes, absolutely, I would. Would I do it on? I think that the questions, the topic that I picked is ever so far-reaching, and even though the amount of research that I believe I put into the paper, I think it's really only scratched the surface, and I think there you could go a lot deeper. But I think there's a lot more other questions that are sitting out there that we should be able to do the research.
Can you give me one example? I'm just you warned me earlier when you said don't push me. I can't resist this, Paul. Sorry.
Here we go again. Here we go. I'll start to shiver in a minute. I mean, okay. So if we've done the research on fees, well, what's the solution? Could we look at a hybrid model?
A hybrid model?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there hybrid models out there that could work for the benefit of firm structures, but give also the outcome to the clients?
So, let me wrap my head around it. So you're saying maybe there's a fixed element and there is an additional element.
Yeah.
That's tied in with the... Okay.
Yeah, just simplistically looking at it, and I don't believe it is the solution, but could the planning fees be fixed? Could the implementation fees, could they be percentages with maybe a risk premium that sits in there? There can be an element of different things that maybe can work.
Or maybe give people the choice. Is that okay?
Again, give people the choice. But then we have many other subjects that could be researched. Curiosity, Paul, I can tell. Yeah, absolutely. You just just
bring it on.
Me again.
Bring it on. It's been a pleasure, Paul.
Charles,
thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.